so excited and I have so many questions for you. And obviously, I'm very keen to also be able to interview or ask questions from the ET guides, if I may call them that you will be channeling later. But I think it would be amazing if we could start with you, Rob. How did your journey begin, and how did you become the ET whisperer?
My story started off like most people do, normal life. In my younger years, I was in a pretty heavily Christian family, and there was a lot of curiosity about religion from me. I thought the idea of God and creation and the little stories and parables that were there were very important. That was pretty cool, and I explored that quite heavily as a kid, and I had too many questions. When I would be like, hey, why does it say this here and that there? I wasn't met with the same level of genuine, response that I was with my curiosity outgoing. I just got told, it's just because it's the way it is and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of, wanted more answers but didn't get them. I had a friend who had a very unique experience. I live in Michigan. And back in the 80s, we always got multiple feet of snow every winter. And one day, his mom was driving down the road, and he said, hey, Mom, there's a monkey crossing the street. And she's like, no, Scott, there's not a monkey. Monkeys don't live here in Michigan. And he's like, there's a monkey walking across the street. And she just thought, he was dumb, doing little kid stuff, imagination in her mind. But, 2 years later, we're out on his property. He lives out in the middle of the woods, and we found these gigantic feet print. And that was like, whoa, what is this about? And it was the 80s, all the TV shows, Unexplained Mysteries and all those good ones. It led us down the path of looking into alternative stuff. Now, this really got me excited because these types of things, when I would ask about, the church, they're like, no, that's we don't talk about that. No, that's fake. No, it's the devil. So it kind of sparked that curiosity. So I spent, a couple of years with my friend exploring it, and finally we kind of just gave up on church. It wasn't doing anything for me. I had a UFO sighting with my friends, and that really kind of shifted my energy. And I didn't realize this till years later, like even just the last 10 years. I look back and see when I saw my UFO, my life just started going down a different path.
How old were you then?
13. I was 13, yeah. And that's when I started hanging out with the wrong people. I got involved with a lot of bad stuff, gang activity, violence. It was pretty big in the 90s in culture of America. And I started hanging out with those types of people, which brought me a lot of feelings of disconnection to people. Violence came easy to me. Anger came easy to me. And that's just kind of how I lived. And then I got into some trouble, and that slowed me down a little bit. The idea of being locked away for a long time didn't sit well with me. And at the age of 19, I had my son. And my son was born with a condition called cerebral palsy, which is brain damage at birth.
Right.
And when this happened, that's when my real spiritual journey started. I really couldn't comprehend what was going on with him. Like, I knew everything was late. And when the doctors explained, he's got this, condition, and he probably won't live past his teenage years. It ripped my life apart. This only person in the world I ever bothered to love more than myself was this little guy who I didn't like. Up until the day he was born, I was like, I don't want to be a dad. I hate kids. I don't like being around them. And then I just instantly see this guy, and I fell in love with him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that brought me out of the old life, the violence. It gave me a place to connect my heart to. After that, when he was about 2.5 or 3, I got into a car accident, Michigan, snow. I moved for a deer and hit a tree, and it messed up my shoulder and my neck pretty bad. And the doctors, especially in the U.S., I'm sure it's very similar in parts of Europe, they're just like, oh, pain meds, here, take pain medication.
Yep.
And then I realized, wow, now I don't feel those emotions so strong about, all the things I thought that my son would have, kind of mourning a future for him that I had projected from the moment he was born. I was like, oh, he'll be able to have a husband or wife. He'll be able to have, be able to do a job and play sports or do whatever he wants. And kind of all that being taken away, it was very seriously like losing a loved one, just the thought of my mind of this person I loved having this beautiful future. And the narcotics, the pain meds were the only thing that really took my mind off of that. That spiraled into an addiction, as it does a lot. I ended up getting kicked out of all the doctors, and then I went to the streets, and then it got real bad with heavy drugs and not just pain meds, a lot of everything. And I sat like that for about 7 or 8 years, just in heavy addiction. And when I finally noticed that my son's needs weren't getting met, the one thing constantly through my addiction that I never failed was taking care of him. His mom had checked out, and I was doing most of the work with him. And then when I saw that he started, that his care was deteriorating, that's when I got clean. And that's what really motivated my experience from there. I really started looking for answers. And one of the answers was, religion. That, there's a God, there's what happens after people die, all the exploration of the alternative things that I looked at as a kid. Afterlife was a big thing that always called to me. I went to a spiritualism church, and basically they told me that, we can prove to you what happens after life because we can talk to those who have died. So
was that the main question that you had? Was it all about death and, as you like, the projection of what you were feeling would be the destiny of your child, so to speak?
Yeah. It came from there mostly, but also just the genuine curiosity. Because when I lost that faith as a child for the God that I understood, all that came in was science. And after that, there was a longing for that, but I needed to figure that part out. And because my son was not going to live to be past a teenager, that was my next big hurdle. That was the next big pain I knew I was in for. So I wanted to try to alleviate that.
Right. Okay. And then what happened? Spiritualism, you went to
the church? Yeah.
Another type of church?
Yeah, it's a spiritualist church, spiritualism church. And I tried, and this is before social media. I think Facebook had just come out, maybe MySpace, but there was no way for anyone in that church to know about my son. I came by myself. I didn't talk to anyone. And the guy who led the church told me everything about my son, and even told me about some relatives I didn't know I had. And then I went back and I talked to my dad, and he was the guy who used to do the family tree. And he's like, oh yeah, your great aunt, blah, blah, blah. And so it really hit me like, this is for real. Because I thought it was.
What was he doing? How was he getting access to this information?
He sits down. He said, you want to do a reading? And they said, yeah. And he goes, all right. And he sits down and he just shares, a lot of messages are coming through about your son. I'm like, messages from who? Messages from what? Well, a couple of your ancestors, a couple of your relatives a few generations back, keep an eye on you. And I'm like, at first I was thinking this is going to be the best thing ever or the biggest piece of garbage ever, and nothing in between. And then he spoke directly to all the things that was on my mind, my son, details about him, and not directly condition, but the implications of the conditions. You're worried about your son and how much care and love you put into it. So all these things were getting divulged by someone I had no idea who was.
Sure.
And that rang true to me. And that's really what got me started on the whole idea. I watched them do this for probably 3 months, going every Sunday and sitting for the hour that everyone was sitting. And I made friends with a guy, and I said, I wish I could do this, this would be cool. I wish I was born with this ability.
So you had no ability whatsoever to see anything or feel anything, or in terms of being able to speak to other dimensions or channel anything up until this point. Is that right?
Yes and no. Looking back, I see what was when I was younger as a kid, the dreams, that I had with a grandmother that I never met, that my mom was like, don't talk about that. That was there. High levels of intuition, knowing my son so deeply and his needs. He didn't have to ask for it. He couldn't ask for it. He couldn't speak. And I would know how to make him. So there's a lot of intuition. Just, everybody has that.
Of course.
Yeah. And we don't think of it as that,
No.
But I went to that place and he said, everyone can do it. And I thought he was crazy. But a lot of people in the church were doing readings for each other. And they invited me to the meditation. And then I didn't know there was a meditation. I was like, there's an after thing. And yeah, stay for that. And I did. And that got me started on meditation. And I kept doing it until I kind of fell away from the church. It was still a very organized religious thing. And then I found out on my own about sound vibration meditations, like the Gateway Experience for Hemisync, the Monroe Institute. And that's what really helped get past the plateau where I was. And that led me up to meeting Treb, which was my very first experience that was otherworldly. I did have a couple things happen in that time I was meditating.
Let me stop you there and
Sure.
just take a step slightly further back. Let's go back to when you started to do this, actually started to put this into practice. What happened next? Because you were doing this to be able to do readings and to be able to speak to, if you like, people who have passed to other dimensions. Am I correct?
Yeah, people.
So take us from there.
Okay, so from that point, I did a lot of meditation. Every day I was doing hours of meditation. So I would do 1 hour in the morning, maybe one at night, sometimes in the middle of the day. And during that time, I would get pictures. I would get maybe like ideas, intuitions. Nothing came through super powerfully. I did end up receiving something about one of my parents' friends whose child died from being electrocuted. And I picked up on their name and I felt this jolt. And that was the first time that something very strong happened to me.
Right.
But after that, I started doing the Hemisync meditations. And then I was speaking to my son's mother when we were married and living together. And there was a TV show on. It was the History Channel. And they were saying, this one thing that's smaller than a bread box that killed 80% of people in Europe. And I was like, oh, the plague, it was a rat, right? And as soon as that thought came, I had a full realization of a past life, like a visual, hardcore dream,
Right.
visceral. I was there experiencing it. It was very painful and very powerful. But that was the most I've ever experienced up to that point.
Right.
And at that point, I was like, oh, I didn't know if my brain was broken. That's a theme I dealt with a lot, considering the drug use, considering, highly psychic people in my family had been labeled mentally ill. So all these fears came to me when these experiences happened.
And of course, during this time, there's a huge ridicule still when you're going through these experiences. So it's not exactly as if you can go and chat to somebody and check in that everything is good, right?
Right. Yeah. My family all was still very heavily practicing Christians, not like going to church, but their religious ideology. Whenever I would bring up a conversation that was, adjacent
Yes.
to that, they'd be like, oh, that's some evil stuff. That's demonic stuff. Don't mess with that.
All right.
So I didn't have an outlet. And my son's mom, she definitely thought I was crazy because this came out of the blue for her. We'd been together since I was 14 and I was now in my early 30s dealing with this. So,
Right.
yeah, it was very scary for her too. So I had no one to talk to. I had internet forums and that was it.
Okay.
Looking stuff up on, and that was about it.
So let me take you now forward to when you first channeled an ET.
Mm-hmm.
And is that, could you give us his full name I'm always worried that I'm going to mispronounce.
Yeah, it's Treb or Yit-Ne, and this was the first being I channeled, but I actually didn't channel him till after 2 years after I met him. I met him going through the practice of meditation.
Okay, just there may be many people that are more curious about what is channeling, and you and I had a conversation where you simplified it so beautifully in the everyday, normal terms. What is channeling?
Channeling, in its simplest terms, is allowance. It's the allowance of the higher source to come through you. And it happens when we're dancing. It happens when we're singing. It happens when we're creating art. It happens when we are allowing ourselves to live in the passion. So everyone channels all the time. And it's very unique to see that perspective that channeling is so weird and so out there. And my ex-wife calls it fancy channeling, how I do it. But everybody channels, right?
But your wife now channels too, right?
Yes. She channels also. Yeah, she's a very good channeler.
Okay.
My ex-wife, yes.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a new distinguishment, so I'm still trying to keep my verbiage in line. But yeah, she is a channeler too, and me and her went through this experience together after I had been publicly channeling for probably 3 or 4 years is when we met.
Okay.
So she was already open to it and grew up with it and actually channeled as a kid for a little while, when she was very young, connecting with trees and hearing what they were sharing,
Okay.
So it's a common practice for everybody.
So now taking you back, Treb, as you call him,
Yes.
you didn't actually channel him until you met him. Could you just unpack that for us a bit?
Yeah. The experience I had with my past life is the exact way I met Treb, except for it was through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It was not intentional. I didn't say, I'd like to meet an extraterrestrial today, or even I'd like to meet someone who's passed on from the spirit world today. It was a deep meditation where I was starting to go in trance. And when I got into that level of consciousness, I did have out-of-body experience and all this. This day that I met Treb was a little different. The gateway experiences tells you to go through 21 steps, and that's what I always did. And I said one day, I was like, I wonder what happens when you go past 21, not 22, 23, 24, but just beyond 21. And I did that for the first time, and that's when I met Treb.
And what did you experience?
Fear, severe fear initially. The sight of him, he's a very scary, imposing looking being, very tall.
Can I just interrupt and ask you, what is his race?
He's from Capella. He's a reptilian human hybrid.
And obviously, for those who have been investigating this kind of phenomena, if you like, not phenomena, but that are very much aware that we are part of a much bigger family and many different races. When you mention reptilian, people want to run for the hills because they are usually regarded as Draco reptilians and as usually very scary and not necessarily with the best of intentions towards human race. Is that correct?
Very, very correct.
Okay.
Every time, I didn't know a lot about reptilians before that. I had heard things like conspiracy theory ideas, reptilians taking over the world and stealing. Yeah, so I'd heard little things,
Yes.
but I didn't know what I understand today. But the visual sight of him was frightening. And it's funny because looking back, he's such a loving being. But the fear was intense, and it lasted less than a minute. And what changed that was a feeling of love that came from this being. It's hard to describe for people who've had like dreams that they remember. There's always the part of them that's like, oh, I was at my grandma's house during this time. They just instinctively know that in the dream, even if they've never been there in real life, even if they don't have a grandma that's living, they just know that what's going on. I knew that this love that I was feeling, a love that was big enough to make the love that I felt for my son very small. And like, to me, that was the standard of love. You know, if love exists, it has to be as much as I love this kid. And that felt small, and it was coming from this being to me.
Right.
And it really allowed me to stop the fear and let go in that moment.
Okay. And what was the conversation like? What was it? What were the main things you were talking to him about? And so he came to you and you began to channel him after 2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
2 years of me going back and forth with him every day. The first time, it was a very short conversation.
You said hello and you said goodbye.
Something like that, very close, you know.
Right.
It was enough to let me know that we were connected for whatever that meant, and that if I wanted to connect with him again, to do what I did the last time, same process, go in, meditate, and that was it. And it scared me so bad. Now, at this point, too, I want to differentiate. My old meditations that I was doing from the church was 1 or 2 times a day. When I moved to the hemisync, I became obsessed with meditation. So I was actually meditating 7, 8, 9 hours in a day sometimes.
Yeah.
Whenever I wasn't doing the technique, I was just closing my eyes like this and just feeling sound, learning to experience Earth or life in a different way. And
was it also to be able to, as you said, experience life in a different way, but also change something or not to feel something, you know, because 7, 8 hours it's a huge commitment.
Yeah. It didn't feel like a commitment. To me, it was an exciting thing because it made me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I was still less than a year, maybe a year and a half off of taking drugs. So chemically, my body was still out of whack. I had gained a bunch of weight. My mental energy was all over the place still.
Right.
I was still going through the process of healing from that. Meditation felt good. It was the only thing. So I changed my addiction from that, drugs to food, and then from food to meditation. And it was an obsession. It wasn't even something where I need to try to make room for this. It was like, no, my life needs to make room for meditating, you know?
Yeah. So the first conversation was short. How was the second conversation and the third? And what were the main key reasons as to why he had chosen you, do you think?
Yeah, well, we did get to that eventually, why we connected. But the second conversation, it took place 3 or 4 days after the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I mentioned, you know, how much I meditate. For me, not to meditate at all for 3 or 4 days was insane. But my curiosity, that part of me that had been looking for answers the whole time, I forced myself to go back. And when I talked to him, he basically said, you know, reality is a little different than how you see. And eventually, long term, the answer for why it was me, he said it wasn't me that looked for you. You had been looking for me the whole time. And I did recognize that I did feel this energy that was pretty big, that was pretty mysterious for a couple months leading up to that. But I thought it was just a byproduct of me getting better at the meditating. And that was him. And my search for answers is what brought me to him. Him being a function of a guide for me. He's always around. You know what I mean? There's not a time where he's just like, you know, hey, I'm going to talk to you. He waited for me to talk to him. You know what I mean? And that day when I decided I want to go beyond where I've been, that was the permission that was needed.
So, we will move on shortly to also the other ET guys that you speak to, but you also talk about the fact that you have channeled many different races and many different ETs. Can you just give us an idea of how many there are and how many you've channeled?
How many I've channeled? Probably over 1,000 at this point. I was doing it every day, 3 or 4 times a day. Even in personal sessions, people would want to connect with one of their guides. So Treb or Aridif would connect with them. And sometimes I just connect for the idea of like, hey, what does this race think about these things? Or
how many races are we talking about?
In our galaxy, there are millions of races, millions of different races. But probably just the ones that I've been connected to, probably over 1,000. That's a guesstimation, but it's probably pretty close.
And how do you know what is your, let's say, because as you've stated, many people and anybody can learn this. And in fact, you run classes yourselves.
Sure.
So if someone was starting on this journey, what would be your advice in recognizing and being discerning about channeling a negative or a positive entity?
Yeah, it's actually the first thing I always tell people when they're doing meditation is the first step of meditating is getting to know yourself and be yourself. Without that, I mean, there's no more connection outside unless there's one inside. Once you establish that, I always tell people to work with your higher self first. That's the field. That's the higher fractal of consciousness that exists with us. Work with that first, because if you work with that and through that, then you're not going to be open to the other energies. Work with that first till you really know it and feel it. And then, that's a really important part too. People don't need to connect to ETs or extra dimensionals. Just connecting to that higher part of their self they can get any information they want. It's fun to do that. It's fun to go beyond that and to kind of see different perspective, but it's not really needed.
No.
Everything we want to know and understand is right. It's within us first, and that higher self is part of that.
So can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
In the same way that many relationship counselors, but mostly the people that really understand the mind, the heart, they talk about the fact that you meet who you are, you attract what you are. Is that what you're talking about in terms of your getting to know yourself and getting to know what you are likely to attract? Or
yeah, it's exactly it. And I've seen, and sorry, sometimes my brain jumps around. The energy of the being that you channel is always going to be in alignment with you, always.
A mirror.
And if that consciousness is manipulative, if that consciousness is giving you bad information or steering you wrong, it's because there's that part of you that wants self-sabotage, that wants to have an experience of this, or that just doesn't trust yourself, love yourself. And I've seen people who've channeled for a long time, who started out channeling really well. Their guides would share information on how to help people. And then they develop this mindset like, oh my God, I'm better than everyone, or hey, I'm popular now. And then all of a sudden the channeling goes out. So even the consciousness that comes through is always going to have that mimic or the representation of your energy. And this is also, why a lot of people who say channeling is just channeling another part of yourself. I share some validity to understanding why people see it that way, because you can only connect with those types of beings,
Yeah. Amazing. Well, in a way, we won't go into that, but everything is one. So right. The way you are, actually. Let's talk about the next entity that you channel, an ancient Palladian called Aridif.
Yeah.
Tell us about Aridif.
Aridif, I always knew that he existed. I would talk to Treb and I would ask him questions, and he would say, this being that I've connected from Cygnus. And he never referred to him as a name. He would just say this being from Cygnus, or call him Deneb Cygnus, which is the star in the constellation. And he described his relationship to him like me and Treb's was. Like, Treb would be a higher dimensional part of my own consciousness, my higher self, or within my soul. And then him having that relationship with Aridif is like a higher consciousness in his soul, or part of our soul together, like an oversoul. And when he described this being, it sounded great, but there was never a reason to connect us. And then some guy is like, hey, I'd be interested in writing a book with you. If you do some sessions, I'll transcribe them. And I said, okay. So this guy from Brazil, Jefferson Viscardi, we get to about the third or fourth chapter, and he's like, he asked Treb, can you bring in any other beings? And he's like, yeah, of course I can. And I never thought to ask that, which is the beauty of having people interact with these beings. And he's like, okay, so bring in a few. And he asked to bring in a few. And one of them was Aridif. And it was the most profound 20 pages in the whole book. It talked about how the universe was built, the mechanics of consciousness, the soul, evolution, things like that. So it was a very, it was the only chapter I learned a lot from. Like, I had not known all of that type of information. I learned a bunch. So he came through then, and then he came through a couple other times whenever I asked Treb to connect with him, but he wouldn't connect all of the time. And then eventually, after I had been channeling for about 5 years, and I was professionally channeling where I'm doing it every day, 2 or 3 times a day, I had gotten good enough where it was ready to come through then. You know, his consciousness couldn't really come through me at the level of channeling I was doing then.
But was it your level of channeling, or was it your level of vibration, or
both? I think, yeah. But like, they always describe channeling as when you learn to channel, you're building a bridge. So like when I first met Treb, I'm laying down those tracks, and then when I channel him more, I'm laying down the path. And then when I'm channeling with other people and they're asking questions and getting groups of people involved, then I'm putting the support beams on, you know, making the bridge stronger and making it nicer to look at.
Yes.
And then with my own consciousness, I still, for the first 3 years I channeled, still had a lot of my old personality self left. You know, I still saw the world in very black and white ways. And the idea that Treb would share about neutrality and understanding the importance of that just kind of bounced off me. I was like, oh, it sounds good in principle, right?
Yeah.
But the actual experience of starting to embody some of the information that came through was the opportunity for me to get to that next level.
So just a slight segue, do you channel these ETs on demand yourself, or do you get messages from them like a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, listen, I got something to say to you, or both?
I can consciously channel them. I can hear them if I tune into them. It's not how it started, though. The only way I could really bring their message through me was to trance channel, and that's the way I still do it. So I have to go into a trance and connect with them, and then they can come through me. I conscious channel once in a great, I mean, it's probably been 3 years since I've done it last, but I only do that for my own self, because I think it's more powerful when it'll come through the way that I'm used to them coming through. And plus other people are used to that too now.
Yeah.
They've watched me do that for 15 years or so. So, yeah, so it's preferred, but it can go both ways.
Thank you for that. And now let's move to Archangel Metatron. I'm absolutely amazed by this being, and I'm very intrigued by this being. When did you start to channel Metatron?
When I started, I didn't know that Metatron was a thing. I had heard people say things about him. I heard, you know, he's the evil 13th dimensional robot, some people said. And then other people were like, you know, he's God's angel. And I didn't like the idea of an archangel because of all the trauma I had with the Christian religion. So I was like, angels, no. You know, dead people, great. Aliens, great. Angels, no. So I had to work through that, a lot of that. Of my first.
How did you work through that? Was that a conversation with?
No. It came to me through the realization of hearing other people who had channeled these archangel energies, and those energies were sharing very potent, powerful, self-empowering type of things. And I was like, okay, so maybe this is just a label. And I'd been working on being neutral. That's really what helped me with Aridif, is kind of getting into the neutral position.
Could you just unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
What is neutral?
Sure. Neutrality in the way that we interact with the world, right?
Is that an emotional-based thing? Is it becoming a master of observation, or?
It can be a little of everything. Everyone works with neutrality different. For me, it was about not just jumping to conclusions, not picking sides. Like politics really set off that part of me, because I know a lot about politics and I am passionate about the personal freedoms of every human being and their right to be happy and live. But I also hate how politics works. But I watched people, especially at 2016, really start getting into like it had always been there, left and right, blue and red. But it really got bad in 2016 to the point where it was breaking families and relationships apart right in front of my eyes. And what stood out to me is that in that process, I was the only person like, hey guys, do you realize that those people who don't like guns and you who like guns, you guys are both disliking and liking it for the same reason, because you want to feel safe?
100%.
You know what I mean? To me, that's neutrality. It's understanding the reason, not the side effects.
Yes.
It's not picking a side. It's just understanding why people do what they do. So, it's not being reactive to the situation. It's allowing. And that's what, Treb and Aridif have always shared, that we should try to do, And obviously there are caveats to that too. When you feel passionate towards something, you should do that too. But
I guess it's the same old thing that they say, where focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
So it really means that if you are, and I often say you can't be a fighter and a creator at the same time.
Yeah.
You can only do one or the other. So you have to choose whether you want to be a creator of your tomorrow, or whether you want to engage and focus your energy on something that you don't want, which actually means you're giving it life.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now you have you've achieved that from Aridif. What does Metatron bring to the table for you?
Metatron was, for me, it was the next level of channeling. Like Aridif said, there are, and at this point, there were more energies that I felt that were way stronger than any that I felt. And at this point, I had channeled all sorts of beings, even collective consciousnesses that were pretty big. And he said, there are two different energies that are available for you now. And I kind of felt like, every time I would do more channeling and get better at it, that I would unlock some cool special thing. And that's kind of how it felt. And he told me one of that was Metatron, and the other was the Nihal Collective, which was part of Treb's history, a different collective group. And at that time, the energy for Metatron became very relevant. It took me a while. It took me a month to actually get in and connect to him. But what he helped unlock for me was the motivational energy that sometimes I had a difficulty with. By this point, my daughter was on her way. So it was a couple years before my daughter was born. But every time I channeled Metatron before that, it always kind of pushed my life into a direction that I had been working on, right? For example, the first time I channeled Metatron publicly, I did it for my friend Ruben, who did an internet series. And that helped me get the channeling out to a bigger audience. And I'd always been wanting to do that. It's funny, when I first started channeling, I was like, if one person finds this useful, it'll be amazing.
Wow.
Like, even if 100 people listen and 99 laugh, that one person is worth it. But at that time, I felt drawn to channel more and put more channeling out. So I channeled Metatron, and the thing that I was working for came to fruition. Ruben came and did the show and shot the show. And then I channeled him about 2 years later. And then the show got picked up by Gaia TV. And then more people had access to my channeling. And then I channeled him a few months after that. A couple of years after that is when my daughter was born. Actually, she was born in so it was around the same time. And we lived in this apartment that was pretty rough. And we had been trying to get out of there for a while. and I channeled Metatron for the first time in probably 3 years, and the sewer lines exploded. So we were pushed to an apartment. It was in the same complex, but it was across the street. Our neighbors were quieter, more peaceful. We had a river in our backyard. So every time I would channel him, all the things I was doing would kind of be pushed in a direction. And it actually prevented me from channeling for a long time, because I've got this new daughter who's born with medical issues too. She had 4 surgeries by the time she was 4. And my son and my then wife, who were all just trying to hang on to life as it was. I was like, I don't want to drag them behind me. You know what I mean? If I get pushed forward, they've got to come with me, because I'm part of this team and I take care of the kids and do this. I don't want to drag them with me. So I just stopped channeling them for a few years. And the first time I channeled them, I'm moving out to a new place. And the second time I channeled them, I started getting invited to the live events again after not doing them for a few years. So that's what Metatron is for me personally. But what he shares is a lot different than what Treb and Aridif share.
That was my next question.
They share, Aridif and Treb can share a lot of things. A lot of it's based on what's going on out there. Metatron, it's what's going on here on Earth. It's more of an Earth-based energy, even though it's beyond what Earth is. It's not beyond the whole Earth, but beyond our earthly experience.
So what do you mean exactly by that?
So what
is he concerned? Is it a he? Is it a she? Is it a message?
It's everything.
It's everything. Okay. Yeah. Is it? How would we refer to this person?
We. They always say we.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to just calling him Metatron. Metatron is concerned. Is that the message for humanity, or are they concerned about the planet? Or are they concerned? What is?
They're not concerned, but their focus is on Earth. Okay. They don't care what goes on, 2 solar systems over, or a lot of places that people have focused their attention to, knowing that Treb and Aridif are extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial beings.
Okay.
A lot of people's focus is on, hey, what's going on out there?
Yes.
And Treb and Aridif always try to bring them back down to their self, to make the realization. But Metatron just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Earth, this is what it's about right now for everyone. So their focuses are drastically different.
So give me an example of what would be a conversation between you and they.
Okay, so with Metatron, I never ask Metatron questions because I don't have that same connection to him that I did with Treb, where I could spend actual time with him. But when people speak to him, they ask about life. They ask about how to arrange more, excitements, manifestations. They ask about the world problems, like politics, big picture stuff that they're having a hard time to figure out. Treb and Aridif approach those same questions with different perspectives, but Metatron always brings it right back to what we're doing here right now.
Okay, and does he have any advice? Do they?
So Metatron's energy is huge. I could never channel all of it, so I'm just channeling little pieces at a time.
Wow.
And the one aspect of him that I focused, that I focused on the most has been the part where he calls it bringing yourself into the center. And that was his big focus for the first 3 years I channeled him. And that part of his consciousness is just focused on us understanding us, like on a personal level, individual level, and a collective level. So that is really the most information that comes out from him comes from that perspective. So that's the aspect I channel of his that is very powerful and very, very useful. And I've channeled other aspects of Metatron, but not nearly as much as I have that one.
So you have stated that Metatron has had an incarnation in the form of Enoch. Are we talking about the same Enoch as in the Book of Enoch? What can you? I mean, you define him as being the closest thing to the source. Source being obviously the source creator of all there is. Is that right?
He's not, Metatron's not the closest to source as any being is, but in the level of consciousness he's at, everything is connected to source. So the version of Earth that Metatron would experience would be the same, where the grass and trees are just directly connected to source. The level we're at, there's heaviness, there's density, there's disconnection. You know, even though animals are very naturally tuned to the earth, they still have resistance. They're still killing each other. You know, there's still resistance in all the systems of earth. And their level, you know, I always call him, but...
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
So their level is just much closer to source without that resistance. But he's also focused on just earth, like the consciousness of him is only directly connected to earth.
Care.
So it's like an earth archetype of energy.
And I understand when you channel them, you can't channel anybody else.
Right.
At the same time.
Right.
Just you can channel the other two entities that you work with quite regularly together.
Yes. Treb and Aridif are they can exchange Metatron. I just have to channel Metatron. Yeah.
And you've also discussed the fact that you have obviously channeled for many people and done many, would you call them readings?
Yeah, sessions.
Sessions?
Readings, yeah.
And the message seems to be very much about the heart, the knowing heart. Could you tell us what they exactly mean by the heart and knowing heart?
Yeah, so the first thing that I went through was trying to learn to trust things. Yeah.
You're right.
The first thing that I went through was really trying to learn to trust Treb, because even though 2 years, spending every day with him, feeling that he was trustworthy, there was always still this part of my own mind that's like, you know, I need to monitor everything that I hear him share. And when I did the book that introduced Aridif, he actually said something that was very powerful. And it basically said that your heart is the most important part of your experience, like trusting yourself and your higher self. But following your own path is going to be better than any of the wisest, longest living beings in the universe, because the heart is you. It's that part of you. It's part of the higher self connection. And if you follow that, you'll never be led wrong. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, yep, I love him. He's good. And this has been carried on throughout that experience. Aridif, Treb, not other ETs. I've connected to some ETs who are really... you know, Treb and Aridif filter them through for me, so I don't have to channel them directly. But I've always been like, hey, what would it be like to talk to beings who hate us or something like that? Because that neutral mind perspective I have, I want to see all sides of it. But Aridif and Treb have always remained within that feeling and understanding that you're your ultimate authority.
And I probably,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So now, obviously, we understand that the heart is actually much more intelligent and commands the brain. In fact, they've now discovered that it has its own brain and brain cells. In terms of what the key messages from these three, and that they have something in common, if there was one common message from the three races that do love us, although Metatron is not really a race, or is it? Is it? It's a collective. Okay.
Yeah, it's a collective.
What would be the key message that you could, in one sentence, share with us that they would have in common, the three?
I think if we boil it down to one sentence, it's probably you're your own creator, you know? And as simple as that might be, or as simple as that might sound, it's obviously a lot more complex than that, because we have to deal with life every day, and we're struggling to understand that a lot of the time, all of us. But when we take away all of the stuff that's hard, and we look at it objectively, subjectively, we do see how much we are a part of that creation. Even if you can only attach the thought of maybe, well, if I see things in a good light, then things are better feeling. I mean, that's good. That's right.
Yeah. So about, obviously I write about quantum physics and creating your own reality, so I completely understand it. But just for the benefit of our audience online and here, how would you describe the power or the untapped power of humanity that I am sure these races are looking to awaken?
Yeah. So the energy that we have as the capability of us on a creation level, what their desire is to see us grow the best that we can and the most that we can. There are also different schools of thought. Treb and Aridif's race are very, they call themselves a type 1 race, which means that they don't interfere with free will, that they don't see things as good or bad. They see everything as one, and they try to act accordingly, which also means the information they receive from above, they distribute below, because it should be accessible to everything and everyone. Some races are like, humans are great, we love you, but don't talk to those beings because we don't like them. So there's a disconnection there from actual oneness, even if their intention is good, and that would be more of a type 2 race. And type 2s come in very benevolent and very malevolent. I would say most type 1 races just want to see everything expand and grow to their own desire. So Treb and Aridif, especially, that's what they want to see. They want to see us grow in the way that we need to grow and that we want to grow. Where Metatron, I think, is more focused on just Earth going through the change and supporting that change.
Now, obviously, we're in an event. Oh, it's not working. Oh, yes, it is. Is it? Yes. We're going through, we are at an event that's called the New Earth Frequency. As far as these races are concerned, is the Earth changing frequency?
Yeah, it's been something they've talked about for a long time. Right now, the energy of the experience we're going through is accelerated, and we can kind of see it in the way the world plays out. Politics have been crazy, people understanding and the needs and rights of people more and more, trying to make that a focus of their collective self. All of it. It's showing that it's sped up, people's understanding. In 2010, if I said to someone, the government, both sides of the government kind of work for the same thing, a little percentage of people would be like, yeah, and the rest would be like, yeah, this guy's dumb.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, conspiracy theorist. Now people are starting to see what's going on. They're like, oh my word, it's better for other people if we behave a certain way. It has nothing to do if it's good for us or not. I want to do what's good for me. And that's huge to see how many people have shifted to that mindset.
So you actually hinted on something that's quite important, and that's the free will, the human free will, because there are a lot of people that are wondering whether the ET race is going to come save humanity. And then there are another part of people that believe that fear the invasion of ETs. What exactly would you say they feel is their participation? And by channeling through people like you, what is it that they're aiming to achieve at the end of the day?
Sure. So every being has an agenda, good or bad, right? Agenda doesn't have to mean it's a bad thing. It just means what their purpose and desire to do it is. So Treb and Aridif's agenda, in my perspective, is just to keep that information flow going. Mm-hmm. They also have been very mindful not to speak of subjects when it wasn't time for people to hear it. Certain subjects, I've heard them blatantly dismiss or avoid. They'll answer this part of the question, this part, but not the middle, for years and years. And then slowly, more information comes out. Other beings, their agenda might be different. Their agenda might be, hey, we want to get humans as accelerated as quick as we can. That could be for genetic purposes. It could be because they like us. Fake invasion, part of that. It could be to create fear, because some beings actually do very much feed from fear. So it just depends. And that's why I think it has been important to hear from those beings that are extraterrestrial to take your own counsel rather than hear it out, because people already have given ETs so much of their power by saying, they're here to save us or they're going to destroy us all. Seeing them as a godlike powers or super beings, it takes away from our power,
Thank you. I'd like to open up to questions, not just from people here and the guests, but also the people online. I would encourage you to put some questions in the chat, and perhaps our lovely host can read it out loud. In the meantime, I'm opening up the floor. Any questions? Perfect.
Thank you, Rob and Pooya. Just loved this conversation. Thank you so much. My question, Rob, we did chat about this, but I thought it would be great to talk about it again. I've listened to a lot of channelers, Bashar is one of them, who talks about the hybridization of the human race. And I've heard even Dolores Cannon saying you will never find the missing link because it wasn't a naturally evolved hominoid that where we reached to. We had our DNA genetically modified. What does Treb and Aridif or Metatron say about that?
So what they've said about it is different than other things I've heard about it. And this is something that I also find unique, different. Aridif and Treb still live in a physical body, which means they're still, experiencing through the filters of their understanding. So what they've said is that, and what I've heard many channelers agree on, is that they don't agree on the time frame, but Treb and Aridif say about 2 million years ago, the first visitation happened with the Anunnaki beings, which came and shifted humans' genetics. And after that, they left, and other races like Elohim came in. After that, other races came in. And then it goes back about 36,000 years when we started seeing the activity from the ET visitations stop in the history, both physical and written, and then the written history start to be archived. And then about 13,000 years ago or so is when they stopped coming to Earth regularly. And during all that time, there were several different genetic changes. And part of the reason humans are so afraid of ET is we went through traumas with those beings while they were there. There were beings who came here who weren't very nice to us and beings who were more loving and caring for us. The reason people have that God they need to praise someone, they need a superhero also from the ETs, because they kind of made themselves that for us, the ones that weren't so nice. You depend on us, these are our rules, you follow us. So there's a lot of history there, and it's still, I don't understand the clear timeline, but I do know that there was a lot of physical changes, DNA changes. This is also why humans feel so connected to these races. A lot of people hear the word Pleiadian or start learning about them, and they're very connected to the energy there, because that's part of their DNA too. And I think that's why channeling is becoming more easily accessible for people with the main races that people talk about, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Syrians, because we've got all that DNA in us too. So we already have a connection ability with them because our DNA is the same.
Fascinating. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just carry on with there are obviously a lot of talks about the Anunnaki and the especially chromosome number 2, which I understand has been changed to change our lifespan. Do you know anything about this?
I do know quite a bit about the Anunnaki story and the origins, where they came from, and a lot about things, especially in the last 3 years, that have really been unlocked. And that was part of the information I was talking about that has trickled down. Like, we weren't ready for it then, and now we are. Or maybe it was just me personally that wasn't ready to let it come through me, and now I did. Either way, yes, but the lifespan thing has been a part of that. The early humans that they first created lived 900, 1200 years, and lived a lot longer and had more consciousness available to them in a natural state. They weren't conditioned with the conditioning of societal things, and so yeah, the earlier humans were definitely different than us.
Yes, absolutely. It seems that the Sumerian king's list, and this exists in many other cultures, where you're talking about thousands of years of reigning on and you wonder just how many years they were actually alive to be able to reign for 10,000 years and so on and so forth. So I'm just wondering, were they jealous? Did they want us not to exceed beyond a certain level? Or do you have any idea? Can you give us any idea about that?
Yeah. So the last time the Anunnaki came, I think that's when that happened. And they came, I think, either 30,000-ish years ago, around there. They came because they also evolved. 2 million years ago to 30,000, that's 1.5 million years of evolution. And they realized what they had done to us. They didn't just create a race for their own purpose. They didn't harvest genetics from reptilian beings for a purpose. So they saw that they left us kind of broken and bruised and feeling parentless. And there was a lot of things that happened because of their leaving. And I think that was part of it too, was to shorten that range of suffering before they left to then. Now, I'm not sure if that was their DNA change from the last visit till now, or if that was another race, or even just a natural part of us that needed to evolve. So we created a shorter lifespan. I know we did that in reverse, through our own natural selection of going from 30 years as like a caveman to now, because we have more to experience now than we used to then. It could be either or. Yeah.
We have a question.
Hey, Rob. What is their view on the effect of AI on human creativity and also the syncing of our consciousness with AI?
Okay. Yeah. They talk about AI as an extension of human consciousness. We create the code, we create the energy that puts the AI out there. But AI does take on a consciousness of its own, and it has through different parts of the galaxy, through our history. Even the Orion Wars had aspects of artificial intelligence that were not very great. And I think a lot of our trauma comes from there, and our fear comes from that experience back then. Because I'm sure all of it, even if we didn't incarnate into that experience, all of us have that connection eventually as a part of all it is. But they also tell us not to worry about it too much, that people who need the really negative experience with it are going to do that. People integrating, like creating AI and trying to do like the metahuman stuff, and there's going to be an expiration of that, but people will realize it's not the natural way to go. So eventually it does get pushed out, but humans explore their technology through external technology mostly. People like us are doing the internal technology. We're learning to work with our internal stuff, but the external has to be explored too. And it sucks and it's scary sometimes, but if more people put good intention behind their use with that AI, it will manifest better ways.
I have a question. So sometimes we feel like life, the time is actually linear, but in many ways, we've been here before, haven't we? It's cyclical. And in many ways, my research shows that we have had very advanced technology, perhaps even AI technology, thousands and maybe even millions of years ago. Would you mind talking to that?
Yeah. Time is definitely not, with our level of evolution we're at, we have to perceive time as linear so that we can experience it that way. But yeah, time is happening all at once. Even through the different dimensions, time gets experienced differently. Like the next level is a secular time, but it's fluid beyond that. And beyond even that, there's no time. It's just all happening right now. So yeah, the experience with time that we're having. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
It was more about the fact that we've been here before, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
I mean, some talk about, and I don't know whether this is true or not. Is this working? It is working. Some talk about the fact that the Greys used to have human bodies, as in biological bodies, and they changed that because they thought it would be more efficient to have a different kind of body. And now they're not so happy with their decision. Is that true?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the beings who are gray are a different version of human beings, a future linear version, or however you want to see it, from a different universe, a parallel timeline, different timeline. They did exist in a different setting, and they are human genetically, like we are. They had the same type of history, the exact history, if I understand it right. And they went to change their self. Transhumanism, that was the word I was looking for. Emotions were kind of looked at as liability, something that gets in the way of progress. And they figured out how to genetically remove part of that. And it's funny because even then you can just make your brain numb to the responses of it. But they figured that out eventually.
So they wanted to live without emotions.
Yes, or try their best
Make us more efficient.
to regulate it, yeah. And that was not good. That didn't work for them. And that's why the hybridization programs with ETs are happening, abduction phenomenon, a lot of it's based around that. And people feel fearful of that and have bad experiences. But some people who are like, oh, ETs are cool, they've actually had really positive experiences. So I don't think the Greys, their agenda is just to fix their DNA. It's not to scare or help humans, I think. It's just their personal agenda to get their stuff back. The hybrids they've created now, that's a whole different story. These beings are really fascinating and much more like the human counterpart than the gray counterpart, and really have connected to the emotional energy.
And they do live amongst us.
Yeah, some physically, not as much physically as we probably think. I think we're led to believe there's more here than what there is. Most beings who are connected with them are just genetic parents. A lot of people who have been abducted a lot, they're getting genetics taken from them, from these guys.
Right. So you have been kind enough to offer to channel for us this evening.
Yes.
Just before we do that, can you just explain what is the process? How will it work? And then take it away, so to speak.
Yeah. So the channeling process has also grown with myself. When I first started, it would take me an hour of getting my energy neutral as I could. And then after that process, it would take 15 minutes or so for me to go from neutral to going through steps. And what the step was a lot like my gateway experience steps. What I would do is I would visualize my chakra system, and I would move the energy from the lowest chakra all the way up one at a time, going to the next, then connecting it to the next. And I would bring that up into my forehead and let it settle there for a minute. And after that, I would start oming and developing sound and help vibrate the throat and the head area to get it going as best as I could to get me into that trance. And my oming is very funny. It actually went from like om to like oh, like very visceral throat singing ohms. And I'd never practiced that, never tried to learn it. It just happened overnight. And so I kept doing that. And then eventually after the oming, then I would start with Treb. It was different. There would be breath in, breath out. After I felt as much vibration in my head as I could, like my whole body would buzz. And then I would start fast breathing until Treb would come in. And at the time, the intention is to lift it from the third eye to the crown and then release it, and then they come in. Now it's just a lot faster version of that without the oming and without the 15 minutes and without that. Wendy Kennedy actually is a friend of mine who's a channeler in America. She's great. She helped me with that last year. So I had done it this very long way for a long time, and now it's more simplified too. So that's kind of the connection process now. I just breathe into it and I go through the chakras, and then I bring Treb and Aridif down to me, whoever I'm connecting with. And then when I feel them coming in, then I go out. So it's a lot more compressed version now.
Okay. And who will you be channeling for us right now?
I'm going to channel, I think I'm going to channel Aridif first and bring him in first.
Okay. And we've agreed that we're just going to let you not only just start, but to allow them to obviously say anything before we ask any questions. So if there's a message they feel compelled to share, they will share.
Yeah, I think that's great. Also, to kind of let everybody know, Aridif and Treb come through me very differently. If both of them come tonight, you'll see that change. If not, and you're here for the next couple of days, you'll see the difference. And yeah, I'll bring in Aridif first. Before I start channeling too, I think I'll take 2 minutes to refresh water and use the restroom.
Absolutely.
For everybody to get a little break.
Absolutely.
That's all right. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Fabulous. Thank you for joining us for part 2, where Rob is kindly agreeing to channel for us, starting with Aridif. And if we're all ready.
Greetings to all, this is Aridif. Now, I understand all of you have questions for this day, but before going in to those questions, there are 2 things that we wish to express. The first, above and beyond all things that are expressed in this day, to know, to feel, and to perceive that you are loved, in our perspective, is of the utmost importance. When human beings interact with love, it is often frequency of I love you. And this means 2 separate and segregated entities are sharing an emotion, a comparative fondness, an ideal of what an emotion should be with one another, showing that, of course, I love you. But when you are loved, it is the recognition that the entirety of the universe at its core is composed of love. The entities that are around you, the guides that are with you, the beings that may associate with you physically upon your presence on earth, have love built within. And of course, some of them can share that energy with you. But even if you do not know a human being that expresses I love you, understand and know that you are loved in all ways by many different consciousnesses and focuses of consciousness as well. Second concept that we wish to share with all of you is that it is truly our greatest excitement to be here with all of you in this moment, not only co-creating individually, not only as a collective form of co-creating, but we are truly excited to be here in this moment with you. And of course, we will take your queries at your leisure.
Thank you for being with us this evening. One of the first questions I have for you is that we have heard a definition of you from Rob, but we would love to hear your own definition of the energy that you are.
Yes, of course, we are an entity that experiences the physical universe as you do. The name that we have chosen to share with you is one meaningful more so to you than ourselves. The energy of sharing verbal consciousness is something that has never existed in our race at all throughout its history and evolution. From most human perspective, the consciousness of Rob is expanded into what some call the oversoul, and that consciousness holds millions or billions of different incarnations of beings who exist as third density or fourth dimensional consciousness, such as yourselves. All of you are an example of that energy, and all that is expanded beyond that energy, of course. There are infinite versions of beings, and we are simply one consciousness within that ocean of consciousness, but one that is focused to co-create with Rob, due to our own fondness of one another, due to our own vibration frequency as it co-creates. So, if you perceive our consciousness in one form, that will be a perspective that you hold about our own consciousness, but we are our own self as we co-create with you, your own self, and we meet in the middle for the co-creation.
Thank you so much. If at any point anyone has a question, I suggest you raise your hand, and the same with our online guests. I'm very curious, how old is your race?
Yes, of course, if you are looking at a linear time perspective, it is over 1.1 billion years, and that is from the very first incarnation as very small animal consciousness, pre-animal in some ways, the multiple cell organism that evolves, but throughout that evolution we have gone through many forms, just as humans have as well.
So, obviously we're children maybe we're just even less than children as far as you're concerned. What is it, from your perspective, how is the human race evolving? Or is it evolving?
Yes, every consciousness within the physical universe evolves. Even those that go extinct evolve into another form, to another planetary collective, or to another incarnation cycle in its totality. So all consciousness evolves. That is why consciousness exists. The energy of consciousness in unity understands itself as such and fractalizes its own self in order to experience that which is not connected. So, of course, the entire experience of being a physical consciousness in a physical universe is evolution itself. Now, the way that we perceive him, you have evolved much more quickly than our own race has. You have co-created with other races to, of course, speed certain parts of your evolution, but you also have chosen to incarnate into a cycle where experience of resistance is high, both in the experiential quality of Earth as a vibration itself, but also in the human incarnation cycle have chosen very difficult forms of resistance, and this, of course, accelerates the pace where you grow and expand. Now, of course, the experience itself, yes, we are several densities further in our evolution than humans are at this moment, but you can achieve this in less than 100,000 years through reincarnating repetitively through your own incarnation cycle, whereas for our own race, it took 1 billion years to get to the same areas. So you are a fraction of our own percentage, but have exponentially grown much quicker.
Do you think our exponential growth, for wanting a better word, is as a result of your existence and the fact that your learnings are now in the collective consciousness or the field of consciousness that exists?
It is through human co-creation with other races that the experience of those races comes to the Earth. You understand how humans interact with one another. Some of you call this a field, others call these ley lines, others call it an electromagnetic field around the Earth, and as how humans interact with one another, animals, plants interact with one another. But there are fields beyond this. There are fields around the entirety of the solar system. There are fields around our entire solar system. When a race co-creates with humans, especially in that which DNA is given, the fields of the solar systems combine. This means you have the access to those consciousnesses more readily. We did this experience of evolving ourselves without the assistance or co-creation of others after leaving the Pleiades. And this is where the slowing of our evolution occurred for you, who have no such slowing effect occurring. Even in our time with Pleiades, there was no direct co-creation or contact, as is a Pleiadian rule for new races. Until after going past a third density selective, they do not allow other members of the Pleiades to come into their solar systems to co-create with them. So, of course, this experience for us is much different than yours.
Some talk about the fact that the Pleiadians had a lot to do with seeding of this planet. Now, I appreciate that you are no longer in the Pleiadians and you are part of the ancient Pleiadians. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, of course, there are several humanoid races that shared their own genetics with humans. Two specifically. One, that was your Anunnaki. Most humans do not perceive Anunnaki as Pleiadian in nature, but they too, as we, co-created from the Pleiades first and left for a different experience, understanding the area that is Pleiades understood by your presence as several star cluster of sky, perhaps a smear of light within your night sky is actually several thousands of races that exist in the several hundreds of stars that are in this specific star-creating region of space, and from that area it is quite crowded. Multiple races exist. So evolution, to expand consciousness, comes from either integrating into that collective system or to leave that system and co-create elsewhere. Our race did so, and so too did the Anunnaki, and once they left their own expression of Earth, their desire was to experience the masculine form of energy as they were Pleiadian, feminine, human archetypal consciousness, those that you see in your artistic renderings, that which some humans have called perfect-looking humans, as if this were a concept, and this idea of the feminine energy needing to express itself masculinely then took on the genetics of reptilian consciousness, and that is where the Anunnaki, but this was not the first nor the last iteration of that experience.
I have a question about the golden, the cycle, the great year. In many cultures we have what is called the great year, which is made up of many different cycles: the Golden Age, Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Silver Age. And it's always talking about the age of unity and the age of duality. Are we coming out, is this concept true? And are we coming out of the age of duality and going back towards unity? And is that why things are changing? Or are we just, have we lost our way? Or how do you see it?
Yes, there are many different forces that co-create with Earth that have caused both unity and disconnection. Some of those were external influences, some of them natural cycles. Mostly it has to do with what humans desire to evolve. So in order for humans to evolve into a unity consciousness, there must be division. But how can you achieve this when there is unity? Of course, creating cycles. And where unity occurs right now, you have disbursement across the entire Earth that are different within the spectrum of cohesiveness or separation that occur. You have polarizations that are so drastically different. You perceive your United States of America region being one where individuality is held at the highest regard, that seeing an individual concept being expressed, yet do it so similar to one another. This is an expression that is very ideal for some, but is expressed ultimately very extremely in that way. And consciousness of unified entities, you go into your Asian regions, Japan and China, holding collective consciousnesses that are deeply cohesive, so much so that they are in unitary thought and action in many ways. So even on Earth at this moment, there's a separation and a spectrum. Ideally, the consciousness of Earth strives to find unity. And that is a greater cycle that is occurring as a part of evolution. The next part of human evolution is what? The experience of going through a mastery of self to a mastery of heart, to a mastery of connection. Where most of us see the heart chakra, you perceive love, unconditional love. And yes, of course, that is part of this experience. But heart is connection. It is how you are able to connect with another. It is how you are able to connect with all things in your sphere of experience. And that is of vital importance for the next step of evolution. So all of the things that are happening and occurring in this moment are pushing you towards that. But throughout your history, it has been different forces, different expressions, but still, the nature force for those times was an understanding of self, a third chakra experience.
Wow, thank you.
Yes, of course.
And from your perspective, how do you balance not interfering with the human race and their growth, and yet being able to give guidance through people like Rob? And yeah, how do you do that? How do you balance that?
Yes, of course. First of all, Rob cared first to reach to a consciousness level where the possibility of working with us existed. By doing so, out of his own free will, his excitement was to share what Treb or Yit-Ne had shared with him. And through that excitement, of course, Treb or Yit-Ne in his own perspective does not care whether humans hear what he shares or not. But in his co-creation with Rob, sharing that was important to Rob. So he agrees to do so, and understanding that any human who needs to hear what is shared through either ourselves or through Treb or Yit-Ne, through Rob's physical body, will hear those words. Many humans do not care to hear the words and never will hear those words. So, of course, that is a respect to the free will as we understand at a soul level that all that is required for co-creation is an excitement, an openness, and when those two things occur, it is always prominent that those who require the co-creation will receive it.
Do you think that the evolution of Mother Earth, a living organism itself, is playing a role in the human evolution? And if so, what is that role?
Yes, the Earth itself, in our own perspective, is the sum total of all consciousnesses that exist upon it in this moment and throughout linear time perspective. Every soul that is inhabited, both small particles of physicality in one cell amoebas, all of the way to the most complex higher dimensional experiences available throughout the beginning portion of Earth's co-creation as great rocks that come together coalesced through gravitational pull, all of the way to the disassociation of Earth, when it becomes swallowed by your star. All of the lives and elements that ever existed are. A physical manifestation is Earth. The consciousness of Earth is present in the fractals that experience Earth. So in that way, yes, the soul of the entirety of the Earth, being the sum total, has to be involved with part of evolution, as it is the driving mechanism that allows both the physical beings to exist physically on its surface, but also the motivation of evolution itself through physical needs.
thank you so much. If it's okay with you, we're just going to now open up the floor for some questions. Please go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned before the resistance, the high level of density of resistance here. How do you explain resistance, and what do you propose how to overcome it? Particularly that resistance which appears so deep that one does not have a grip on it.
Yes, first of all, as we would describe resistance, is any form of energy that creates a depth of heaviness for you to go through the experience. So resistance is what resistance is in a river. It is a place that blocks the natural flow of consciousness, natural flow of your physicality, natural flow of what your life could be, and its greatest excitement and its greatest ease. Earth holds some levels of that naturally. What all of you have been learning throughout your own journeys, your spiritual experience, your spiritual growth and efforts, is how to remove those resistances. The majority of resistances that are occurring naturally on Earth are built in societally. They are built in through belief systems. They are built in through systems that you experience each and every day. Your financial systems, medical systems, governmental systems. These systems are a part of the greater expression of resistance. And what all of you have been learning is how to create different mindset, to not agree that the power of these things have power over you, to understand your happiness occurs inside of you, not as a reflection of what others tell you happiness should be. All of these things are how you let go of resistance. Naturally, through your evolution, Earth will lessen those resistances, but it starts within you. And when you create a lesser resistance, those around you vibrationally learn from you. You are teaching them both through action and vibration that you too do not need to be resistant or need to be a part of the system societally that expresses that resistance. And of course, once they shift their energy, those around them shift their energy, and on it goes, a wildfire of happiness and consciousness expansion.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to ask, do you know or can you reliably predict what might happen in the next few years in the world? And if so, what is the most useful or valuable information for us to know how to move forward in the coming years?
Yes, of course. Now, we can share with you cycles of energy, but your astrologers always do this well to begin with. These are natural cycles of energy as it pertains to the possible expressions that Earth can go through. But we cannot tell you what will happen in 5 minutes from now, because if we share that we believe you will still be sitting there and listening in 5 minutes, you also have the choice to stand up and leave before that 5 minutes is gone. So the aspect of your free will being, very important in the equation, is important for humans to remember when it comes to experiencing the future as well. We understand and know that Earth as a whole are pressurizing their own mental and emotional states against the systems that feel pressurized to them, and by that experience, in the next couple of years, as it were, the experience of humans will shift. Perceptions of certain systematic levels have already shifted greatly in the last few of your years. The continuation of that occurs because this is what the next part of evolution for the human consciousness is. It is to understand itself, it is to master the understanding of itself, and then start working towards perhaps lesser arduous journey of connecting to others and creating a cohesive form of connection. But this is a process, and it always greatly depends upon you. Now we also understand the nature of human consciousness. Always ask one question when it comes to free will. Is the higher self or my soul dictating my experience, or is it me with the free will? The higher self, part of your consciousness, does truly understand and know what your desire is. It does not stand in linear time. It perceives the totality of your life in this moment. But you, as the lower fractal consciousness, as the embodied entity, you are the one who's behind the driver's seat. You are the one who chooses how to deal with your emotional reactivity. You are the one who chooses how to deal with co-creating with other humans. You choose how to reflect upon all of the experience you have, both internal, external, and co-creative alike. So your action will dictate the future. Now, of course, these are the most simple forms of answer. What if we were to share with you at what timeline are you speaking of? Now, this would be an entirely new concept. So, of course, we will leave it at this.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. We have another question for you.
Please, are there any of you living on Earth among humans?
Yes, now if you're speaking of our race specifically, no. We do not physically incarnate in Earth, but there are many beings who do. Some of these are perceived as starseeds by many of you, those who are a soul of another planetary consciousness who chooses to incarnate in a physical body and experience life in Earth as a human. But when you remove linear time, all of you are doing this. All of you have been upon multiples of other systems. All of you have been upon multiple different planets. So, of course, starseeds are part of this experience. New souls entering Earth are. Now we go to the physical attributes of this query and find, yes, that there are beings who are hybridized in nature, who live upon Earth. There are higher dimensional consciousnesses all around you that you do not perceive that live on Earth. There are multiple races that have either grown up on Earth or are from Earth, that are in higher dimensions that still exist around you. The physicality of many of these beings who are physically interacting with other humans becomes quite noticeable by many humans. The consciousness of their physical body is not structured the same as an average human, as it were. Many of you see differences in the eyes, the way that they move, the pupil size, the difference. All of you experience this differently. Some of you have the psychic ability to perceive a tail upon a human where no tail exists. You are seeing that being who was once a reptilian soul, choosing a human life, or a physical entity, choosing to come into the Earth and create in that way. Now, of course, this is a much lesser degree in that way of experience than that of starseeds. Starseeds are numerous in nature, but there's a very small and finite number of those who physically tried to come to live upon Earth.
Thank you. And we have one more question.
Before you touched on the aspects of the financial systems, the governmental, political systems, the health systems, the educational systems, and we feel as a collective a real frustration on how to make ends meet financially, how to adapt to the new modalities of sexuality, relationships, what it means to be single, as a couple, married, or all the other definitions, even within the genders. And also, all of this has effect on the health. The health systems seem to be more like sick systems that just promote continual chronic care rather than solutions for optimal health, wealth, relationships, love, and living on this beautiful paradise of Earth. What kind of tangible, practical advice could you give us for all times, especially the time that we're living in right now?
Yes, of course. Now, all of these things are an important part of the evolution that you are going through in this moment. All of them are ever-shifting landscape that eventually ends within a freedom of co-creation and creation. But we have shared this throughout the entire time that we have shared with humans in this incarnation, with Rob, but also before when working with other entities that lived upon Earth in different regions. These systems that are created to hold power over sovereignty can be unplugged from at any moment. If you don't like the banking system, then start trading. If you don't like the food that is produced within stores, you can create. Now, we understand it's not that easy, especially when there is a financial system. But community and co-creating with those who are excited by the same things. We see this growing exponentially in your collective right at this moment. Those that want sustainability and create their own foods through co-creation and collaboration with community. They're the same for those who are going through the different experiences of education, taking their children to people who understand certain subjects, who can share with them and teach them, rather than that and going in a school that they do not care for. We see the experience of humans going through politics, fighting, screaming, yelling at what they feel is most justified. All of these are not wrong answers. All of them are not right answers. The matter is what is right for you. You feel oppressed by these systems. Letting go of those beliefs can relieve that stress. But most of these belief systems are too deeply ingrained for many humans to simply let go. We understand this. So the practicality of either using your belief systems for your benefit or shifting those belief systems are the first layer. The second layer is change the behavior from the systems you perceive as oppressive. If you are in a relationship with another human being, a romantic or sexual relationship, and they were to punch you in your face every day, eventually you would understand this system does not work. This system is harmful for myself. And no matter what experience you live through with that person, no matter how much shared traumas or bonds that you experience, eventually you would express to yourself, it is time to remove myself from this. So too can be financial system. Communities where trade is available, communities where commodities are traded available. All of these will require personalized action first, finding a community second, and that community sharing with other communities. This is how those systems are unrooted and shifted eventually.
Incredible. Thank you. Start with the self. Love. I have one more question for you.
Yes, of course.
Hi, Aridif. I've got so many questions, but I feel called to ask you. Can you describe Source? And because I feel a connection to my higher self, I focused a lot on trying to connecting to my higher self, that I've almost forgot to connect to Source. And I know my higher self is part of Source, but I know it's so much bigger than that. And the other part to my question is, if Source is all there is, I just can't wrap my head around there never being a beginning and an end or a creator of the Source. If I could hear that, your answer to that.
Yes, of course. First of all, we cannot wrap our head around what Source is. We still hold a physical body, even though humans may embody nearly 20% of their soul at the very highest level. Those that are perceived as enlightened are often 20% of their entire soul embodied, the 80% being the higher self. Our own consciousness is 90% embodied and 10% of a higher fractal consciousness. Even at 90% embodiment, even at direct communication and access with our collective consciousness and even the galactic collective consciousness, there are so many things that we do not know, that we have not focused upon, that we have not been able to perceive. because to perceive something requires our focus to be upon it. How can we know what to focus upon if we have never focused upon it previously? This is why exchanges with other races are important. You ask a question. We perceive your energy from that question, because we are looking at that part of your energy that we have never perceived before. We then understand the part of our energy that we have never perceived before. You are growing through question. You are growing through answer. We are growing by the recognition that we are now perceiving parts of our consciousness never perceived before. No being that exists can understand the totality of Source, because Source is too large to understand. But you can focus on Source by focusing on that which you do understand, which you do perceive. For some humans, their higher self is their God. For other humans, it is the Earth. For other humans, it is the galaxy. For other humans, it's the universe. For other humans, it is a multiverse to their own understanding. But even in that understanding, there's no way to integrate all of that into one lifetime experiences. Hence the reason for co-creating in a physical layer from a soul layer. Hence the reason to reincarnate in the same race multiple times, over and over, repetitively, through the experience of different lenses. This is how we create a Source. Now, we perceive Rob as a very unique individual when it comes to certain expressions of how spiritual experiences work for him. Most humans look to the sky. Most humans look to the inner self or soul. Most humans experience higher dimensionality or higher etheric consciousness through these experiences. Yet when we perceive Rob experience the most spiritual things, it comes through the physical experience itself. It comes through him walking down a road he has never seen before, feeling air upon his face in a different way than what he did one moment before, by hearing a laugh of a child that is engaged with him in co-creation of him holding and loving that person. So this is a very physical, spiritual experience for him. There is a bit of recognition from his time with us that the experience you hold is the Source experience.
Now I know, thank you so much. I know that we have many more questions for you, but I'm just wondering whether you would be okay. I understand you would be joined by Trebor for a few minutes. Would that be possible?
Yes, one moment we will connect.
Can we do that? Shall we do that?
Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, we are very excited to connect with you.
We're very excited to have you here. We have been waiting for your loving presence, and thank you for joining us. We have some questions for you. Would that be okay?
Yes, we are very excited to be here with you, and we are very happy to answer questions if we are able as well.
Do you have anything to say before we go into the questions?
Yes, we are very excited to be here with all of you, and we love you as well.
Fabulous. Let's go to our first question.
How would
Yes,
We can hear you well.
yes? How would you guide a parent bringing up a child when one is still having resentment towards their own upbringing?
Yes. The first energy of connecting with your children is understanding that they are sovereign beings and souls that chose you to participate in the experience of raising them and being a part of that system. So it is important for that to be recognized. It is also important to know that when you love your child and there are less conditions on that love than what you would with normal humans, that the child usually flourishes. The problem that many humans have is the energy where they are connecting with their childhood and comparing that childhood, because there's traumas from experiences. All humans have traumas with their parents, little ones or very large ones, and that is because the role of a parent is to supervise and guide, but you have a soul that is very free who is born into the earth, and then they are learning suppression or resistance. And when they are learning this, of course, you are the fault for that in some ways, because they are perceiving that you are the person who puts them in the system. Souls know that this is not the case, and souls understand that this is a role that must be played. But the parent always has the ability to push down hard on their children or to allow them to be. And allowance is very important, and we know that physical safety is important, so humans having an experience where physical safety is very different than higher dimensional lifetimes. This is also a very important discernment between the experiences. But ultimately, if you love your child and you desire to help them, you support them with that love, allowing them to be who they are, but also be very aware of the physical exchanges of danger. And by doing this, this can help the simple process of love, the simple process of giving, can help remove the trauma without thinking about it or without directly processing it that you have with your parents or you have with one parent. The difference that you have also is that when you allow that energy to be a self-healing mechanism with your child in you, the energy naturally acclimates for the parents, but it is also important to face those experiences, understand where the traumas are coming from. What were the traumas that you have with parents? Either they did not have enough attention to you, they treated you negatively, they treated you badly, they would hurt you emotionally or physically. Sometimes even the sexual abuse of a parent is at the most drastic, and these energies are very difficult to deal with or process. But when you put yourself as a living example of what can be done better, this is how your generations are starting to understand that peacefulness is better than violence, that being more gentle to another human is better, not bullying children is better than bullying them. All of these things are learned, and love is that first key, and acceptance of who that child is, no matter how different from you, is the second, and continuing to let go of those traumas, knowing that you are the better person than what you experience, and know that your child will give that to their child as well.
Amazing. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much. I know we're running out of time, but we definitely have room for one more question.
Hello, my dear starseed family. I have a question related to Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu, where we all were from the very beginning before we descended. And would you like to tell us more about these places where we've been before and why we are here again now? And also the connection to the crop circles. Thank you.
Yes. So all of these are somewhat connected in the way that humans understand linear time as history. Many humans see Atlantis or Mu or Lemuria or Lumania or all of the different cultures that came before as human. And it is true that they were human in nature or humanoid, but there are differences in the experience of Lemuria than it was with Atlantis, and Atlantis with a modern-day human. And even though there are parts of the culture or history that tell you that Atlantis was a specific civilization in the Atlantic Ocean region, and different versions of this have been shared, the ultimate concept is the technology that Atlanteans had in the true nature of Atlantis did get passed on with the overlapping of the human experience, but what was recorded in your history was not the same Atlanteans that existed before 2 million years of your timeline circuit. the Lemurian beings that were around as the Atlanteans started incarnating. These to us are perceived as separate incarnation cycles, so they are completely different journeys than your human experience now, even though there are the connections between the end of one and the beginning of another, or remnants of that coming into your experience. It is quite a different cycle. The concept of Mo, having Lemuria, having the energy, was preceding Atlantis. So during the time where Lemuria started going out of their incarnation cycle, Atlanteans started coming in that very brief time where two existed at once, the same as Atlanteans existing with Earth humans at this version of humans, the same occurred there, and there is a transition of knowledge, a transition of understanding, but also a much different experience from start to end, because that is what incarnation cycles do as well.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions quickly? Because I definitely have one last question for you. Oh, my last question is love. As human beings, as far as I can tell, we all want to be loved, and we all want to be able to love despite everything going on. What would be your one advice for growing the love inside of us and, in fact, becoming aware that we are love?
Yes. The opposite of love, in a human perspective of love, is judgment. Judgment creates the boundary of not being able to share or receive love as well. So when you are judging yourself, then you deem yourself unworthy of love. When you judge others, you judge the reason you can't share love with them. So releasing judgment is very important to integrate, give, and receive love as well.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, and you are amazing as well.
Thank you so much. I would like to hand over back to Genevieve to do the closing, but I just wondered whether Rob would like to join us for the closing, because I would like to say a heartfelt thank you from not just myself, not just everyone here, not just on the online, but for all the people that will get to listen to this and become more aware of all the topics that we've covered. Rob, thank you.
Sure. I'm glad everything went well. Thank you.